Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Retro Warriors episode 505. Woo! As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by viable human Chris Saturn.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, Saturn. We're here, and we're doing the show, and we made it, and it's going to be a good time, and I'm excited.
That sounded very awkward and weird.
I was adjusting my headphones, and I was trying to stall for time. It didn't work. Housekeeping, Guy's here. We're doing the Guy Zone. No, it's not the Guy Zone. It's the what is it? The after party.
You always call it the Guy Zone.
He doesn't. I like that name so much better. It sounds like a bit from like a teen 90s variety show. I want it. I want that to be what it is so bad. But he doesn't like that.
That sounds like the No Ladies Club.
It's. What was it from Little Rascals? The He-Man Woman Haters Club?
That is it, yes, sir.
Is that what they call it?
Yep.
Guy is here for the after party, which is after the show. So please stay tuned after the ending theme, for he shall be here.
Yay.
And we shall speak with him. And it'll be a good time. So look forward to that. My week. I've been playing the video games. I did pick up the Konami's Yu-Gi-Oh! Collection. I've totally forgotten what they call it. I think it's just called like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Early Days Collection, something like that. And it's like, I don't know, 30 or 40 Yu-Gi-Oh! GBC and GBA and GB games.
Dang.
There's a ton in there. Well, here's the problem, too, is you scroll through the list, and every Yu-Gi-Oh! Game is named something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Eternal Duelist Championship, Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship for the Soul of the Duels, Yu-Gi-Oh! the World Dueling Champion Souls, and you're like, it's not like Yu-Gi-Oh! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right. No,
So you have no,
easy.
And some of the games are only in Japanese versions of the games, so they have Japanese boxes, and so they're mixing types of boxes, and none of the names are numerical.
Nice.
And
so you have no idea what order what it is.
Now, you can eventually figure out, all right, this is the original Game Boy one, so this is the first one, and then you can scroll to the right.
Right.
But I accidentally just randomly started one while I was scrolling through the list, and I was like, that's the one I'm playing, I guess. And so I don't know what it was even called.
Yeah.
And so it's been whenever I'm going to bed for the night, I'll take my Switch and I'll play like 2 rounds of Yu-Gi-Oh! Which I like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. It's fun and I enjoy it, so it's an enjoyable enough time.
Yeah.
And I'll play a couple rounds then, and then I go to bed. And the other night, I had gone back to the menu. I'd saved my game and gone back to the menu, and I was scrolling through just like, I wonder what other games there are. Because not late because Yu-Gi-Oh's still going on, but there was a period in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where they wanted this like Dungeon Dice Monsters game to take off. Where the TV show pivoted from being about the card game to being about this dice dungeon thing. And so I wanted to go look at that, but then go back to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game I'd been playing every night. And I go to scroll back to the one I was on, and there's no indication which ones you've been playing. And there's no indication that like, oh, this is the one that you have a save state for. So I'm just stuck going through this list of like, I don't know, 700 Yu-Gi-Oh! Games being like, will this one let me load my save data? No save data. All right, will this one let me load my save data?
Nice.
And then when I finally found it, I forgot to look at what the name was when I entered the game. So I eventually realized it because they all have different borders. So I would just boot the game and I was looking for the border that I recognized. But it's fun. Like, if you enjoy the Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, I like the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game. It's a fun card game. Because it's been going for so long, the game has a lot of added complexity in the last, 10, 15, 20 years. That makes it a little undesirable for me to really play in person, like in paper. But just like the core game, I enjoy. So I do enjoy the Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games. And if you're someone that enjoys Yu-Gi-Oh! But doesn't, play it in card form, or I mean, if you already play it in card form, you probably already have the game and enjoy it. But my point is that it's good. If you I played Yu-Gi-Oh! A ton in middle school. That was my middle school card game. And I had fond memories of it, but I have no desire to get into it as an adult as a card game. So this is a good way to kind of, re-experience those glory days without having to buy more cardboard, of which I own a substantial enough amount of.
Yeah.
I also have been playing Monster Hunter World, not Wilds, World. Because Wilds came out and I was excited about new Monster Hunter, but then I was looking at it and I'm not a fan of some of the changes that they've made.
Yeah.
And I hear that there are still kind of some performance inconsistencies that are probably going to get ironed out with patches and stuff. So I was like,
Sure.
well, I'll wait. Like I don't know. Some of the changes are weird stuff where it's just like I've been playing Monster Hunter since like 2008.
Right.
And so there's stuff that I'm like, oh, you can't take that away. That's like part of what makes it Monster Hunter, and you know, just like old grumpy old people stuff about it.
Yeah.
But then I'm sure a lot of it in practice is probably still good. But I was like, I'll wait for some patches. I skipped World.
Yeah.
I'd played it like one time on Xbox One, and I wasn't in the mood to start it. And it started with a huge amount of tutorials.
Right.
And pop-ups and just information thrown at me. And I was like, I can't.
They
I
do
can't
let you
handle this.
turn all that off on the new one. You can choose to turn
Do
off
they?
all tutorials or some tutorials.
Oh. Well, in World, because the thing is, like, there's usually enough new mechanics that it's worth going through it.
Yeah. Yeah, you can also tell it limited tutorials for people who've played the games before.
Yeah, which I wish more games had that. I feel like every game that's a sequel to anything should have a section that's like, did you play the last game?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's a guy at my office who's a big Monster Hunter fan, and I happened to see him this past Tuesday morning when he was coming in and I was leaving.
Yeah.
And I was like, so did you start playing Monster Hunter yet? And he said, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I was like, how far are you in it? And he's like 70 hours.
Oh, my God.
I go, yeah, pretty good.
Holy shit. You didn't go, is that all? That's all?
Yeah,
I thought you were a
right?
fan. I thought you enjoyed these
Fucking
things.
amateur.
So yeah, it's good.
Nice.
I skipped World entirely. I just kind of had bad first experience with it. And it was also the first, like, I think it was the first of what I consider the modern Monster Hunter, because I think it went World and then Rise.
I believe so.
And so I was kind of annoyed that we came from Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, which was such a perfect culmination of classic Monster Hunter into this like new age. So I was a little turned off by that.
Yeah.
But going back to it, playing it, it's really good. It's really fun. I'm really having a good time with it. I'm still maining my switch axe. It's the only weapon in the game that I like playing. Any other weapon, immediately I'm like, I just want to turn this off. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But
the guy at my office told me that if I want to start playing it and I want to get a weapon that is relatively easy for a newcomer to start with, that I should try. I think he said it was a hammer or a maul or something.
Yeah, I've seen hammer recommended as a good beginner weapon. Really, what I always tell people is I'm like, hey, just treat it like a fighting game. Go into usually the games have a tutorial section where you can try out different stuff. Yeah. Just literally go try every weapon, because the weapons are the characters. If this in the fighting game analogy, just go try every one, see which one you like. Because sometimes sometimes you'll be like, I really like this one. It's kind of complicated, but I really like it.
But it clicks with you.
Yeah, and if you like it, you're more willing to put in the time to learn it than something that you're not excited about, but it's simpler. You know. Yeah. But I've played Switch Axe since forever.
Yeah.
And I think I started on Try, and I don't think Try had Switch Axe. I don't know what I played back then. It's been a million years. But yeah, it's been really good. There's still people online playing it. I'm having a good time with it.
Nice.
I also
I imagine the release of the new one probably helped rejuvenate the community a little bit.
You know, every Monster Hunter that still has an online, there's people online playing it. Like there might be one that they're not, but any of them where it's still actually physically functioning, if you get on, there's someone on playing it right now. I also I picked up Forza Motorsport 4. This is an Xbox 360 game.
Yes.
Because I had gone through, I talked about it on the show, almost missing out on Forza Horizon 4, a game I had many hours in because I never actually purchased it.
Right.
And I was looking back and I was like, man, I never think about racing games, the amount of licenses and stuff that they have.
Oh yeah, between music and cars and all that.
I was like, man, I should probably pick up some of the older Forzas, because none of them are on backwards compatibility where applicable. They get yanked off of marketplaces, within a couple of years of not being the most recent one. Like I really like Horizon 4, so maybe I should try some of the older ones. So I go to the DuckDuckGo and I search like best Forza Motorsport, and 4 is the one that gets recommended. And so I took out my what appears to be on its last legs Xbox 360, which will not read a disc at all vertically.
Oh no.
It'll do it horizontally most of the time, but it's real loud about it. And played some Forza Motorsport 4 on it, and you know what? They're right. It's really good. Really fun racing game. I don't know what it is.
You got a new 360 headed your way, by the way.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I had to text you. I told my wife, I was like, yeah, I texted Saturn and asked if he had any 360s, and he said he had a couple, and so he's going to send one. And she's like, he just has a couple just lying around. I was like, yeah, it's Saturn. This was, what do you expect?
Yeah, one I had won in a contest when I was still working retail. I went to an event to learn more about the new Norton 360.
Oh boy!
And they had a drawing, and I actually won an Xbox 360 there. I didn't think the drawings were real, and then they gave me a 360.
And then you won, yeah.
And then I was like, well, I don't need this. I've already got a 360, and so I gave it to my parents so they could play Bomberman or whatever on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Bomberman
my dad,
Act Zero, yeah,
yeah, Act Zero. And my dad played NASCAR 04 on it, or 06, or some NASCAR game on it, like 4 times, and then my nephew used it as a Minecraft machine for a while.
Yeah.
And then when my dad passed, they were just gonna throw it out, and I was like, no, I'll take it back. And then the other Xbox 360 I have laying around is one that my aunts bought for my nephew to play Minecraft on when he was at their house.
Yeah.
And he hadn't used it in years because he has newer consoles, so they were gonna throw that out. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll take a third Xbox 360. Just keep piling them up.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I've only ever had the white models, and yours is the one you're sending is a slim, I believe. I never had.
Yeah, it's a black slim. Yeah,
a slim. So
I think it's a 250 gig hard drive on it, something like that.
Mine's like a 60, so it's a lot bigger.
Yeah, I'd previously had the Elite, was the one that I had for years. That original grayish.
I remember. Yep.
And that worked great for many years. And then I traded it out for a E model for some reason. I don't know why, because I hate it. It's ugly as shit.
It is. It has a real VCR vibe to it.
Yeah, and the one that I got was like they said. I didn't see it first before I bought it. I bought it sight unseen, just from the description. It was Xbox 360 E model blue, and I thought it was going to be like a dark, nice, classy blue, but instead it's like bright blue and brighter blue.
Yeah, the late model, the super slim PS3s and the late model 360s both went real like bright primary with their colors. Yeah, I saw a blue PS3 super slim the other day, and I was like, what the fuck is that piece of shit? Yeah. And it's like so blue.
That one I would like more than this 360. There's something about the combination of the blue and brighter blue that makes this one just so much worse for me.
Anyway, I've been playing Forza. I really like it. I picked up Gran Turismo 5 on PS3 recently, and I just fucking hate it.
Oh.
I don't know what it is about Gran Turismo games. There's this like
they don't click with me.
Yeah, they don't. In Forza, like it's the same kind of thing. Like it's not. I wouldn't classify it as like arcade racing, but it leans just ever so slightly a little bit more arcade. Like Gran Turismo, I feel like I need to drive perfect all the time, or the game's like, no, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, it definitely feels much more simulation.
Yeah, in Forza, like, you can kind of slam into other cars and cut corners and shit and still do okay and get ahead. And like, I need that little bit of, like, recklessness.
Yeah.
You know, Gran Turismo's like, no, please don't bump into other cars. That's bad. And Forza's like, we don't fucking care.
Yeah.
And Forza also has the rewind button. So, like, oh, you fucked up too much? Just rewind that shit. And I like that a lot.
That is the nicest part.
So I can what it creates is it makes me take more chances. I'll be like, I think I can cut that fucking corner, and I'll try it, and I'll like fly off the track or whatever, and I'll be like, that was stupid, and I rewind.
Nice.
So I do appreciate that about it. It makes it just not more arcadey, but just more fun. I think more lighthearted. Forza always has felt like, hey, we're here to have a good time and drive cool cars. And Gran Turismo was like, no, we are very it's very serious about our racing, and this is very serious sport. And I'm like, nah, we're just driving cool, fast shit. Like, that's it. Although Forza 4, it opens and you're driving like some crazy like supercar, and then they're like, okay, good job, you did the opening race. Which one of these piece of shit like 4 Geo style hatchback garbage cars do you want to drive that go 30 miles an hour now? That's what you got to start on. I was like, oh, gee whiz.
Just
cool.
like real life.
Yeah, it felt real. It felt real. Anyway, what have you been playing?
Not much. I have had no time for games, so I've been trying desperately to finish the game.
You sent me a picture of this
topic.
Xbox. This is ugly as shit.
It's so ugly.
It's it's like square and round. Pick a shape.
Yeah,
Xbox.
Right?
What are you fucking
Squircle.
doing? Squircle.
So I got my
new computer
in. Yes.
Yeah.
So I had been planning this for a while. I wanted to upgrade my media center, and so I because my current Plex server is run on an old Dell, just an old Dell desktop that was going to be thrown away by an old employer. It's running like a 3rd gen i5. It's been around for a minute, and it's been hanging up and crashing and shit. And I was like, I should get a new media server for that. And while I'm at it, I should get one that I can also use as a NAS. And while I'm at it, I should also just have one that I can do other fun, goofy projects on.
Sure.
So I went ahead and went a little more excessive than what I really need for it, which is a Ryzen 5 9600 and 32 gigs of RAM and 12 terabyte hard drive.
All right. Yeah. That's pretty beefy.
And because I wanted to, I put it in an old ass compact case.
You never sent pictures of it. Did it go in there okay?
Oh yeah, it went in there perfectly. Because the reason I picked this case, well, one, I have some nostalgia for compact because that was the first computer that was mine. That was not like my family computer. It was an old compact Presario from the mid 90s. And two, because this specific model of compact is from the era when HP was just putting generic ass micro ATX boards in there.
So just about anything will go in it.
Any micro ATX will just fit in there. Nice. No modifications. Even the back panel, the I/O cover, is just generic, and I was just able to pop it out, put the new one in. Everything went right into place. Super smooth and easy.
Yeah.
And it has been working great. I've got it running as my again, my Plex server. I've also got it running as a NAS, hosting all 12 terabytes to my network. And also I set it up to run as my Pi-hole because I'd been having some issues with my network lately where every day for like 5 to 10 minutes I was losing internet, usually in the mornings. And I thought it was my router. So I had tried a new router. That didn't work. I returned to that router. Then I thought it was my internet provider. But then Andrew moved over into the next building, and he's using the same internet provider, and he's not having a problem.
No issues, yeah.
So at this point, I'm like, what could be causing this problem? And then I was trying to play my Xbox, and my Xbox popped up with an error that said, cannot connect to your local DHCP server. And I was like, my DHCP server is my Raspberry Pi. If that was down, everything...
Wait a minute. Now, what are you on? Is it a Pi 3?
Yeah, it's a Pi 3B.
Okay.
That's all I
originally had my Pi-hole on Pi 3B, and I didn't have issues like that, but I did have some errors and stuff where it was like, hey, getting a little overworked.
Yeah.
And, so I can see it.
When I decommissioned it, I looked at what was going on it, and its hard drive kept filling itself up completely and then wiping its logs and freeing up 30 gigs of the 32 gig SD card every time it would wipe its logs. And then the next day it would fill up again.
All right, then.
And I tried looking at those logs, and it was all like operating normally.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was doing, but it was just like eating its entire storage every single day. And whenever it would just take a shit on itself.
Jeez.
So now, my new one is running Proxmox, which is a hypervisor. It's a free-to-use hypervisor. And then I've got different containers and VMs running within it to run all these things. That way, if one of them takes a shit, it doesn't take the whole thing down.
Yeah.
And I was ready to start the show and say that it's been working great. And then right as we started recording, I noticed that I couldn't get to, because you had posted an image to us of your Walkman, right?
Yeah.
Of your headset, and I couldn't access it. I was like, what's going on? And I realized that I couldn't get to any web address outside of my local network. I was like, my fucking DNS is down. What is going on with my Pi-hole now? And so I've been panic fixing it while we've been talking this whole time. And what had happened was that the base IP for the hypervisor for Proxmox, for some reason, my router was like, no, you don't get this anymore. I'm going to give it to the thermostat.
Oh, so you're trying to use your thermostat as a DNS server.
Yeah, so now
how'd that work? Was
not
that
well. And so now the hypervisor and the thermostat are still on the same IP somehow. But because everything else is nested underneath the hypervisor, the Pi-hole has a different IP, and that's finally corrected now that that conflict isn't there anymore. So I when I am done, I'm gonna have to reboot my fucking thermostat in order to free up the IP address again, because this is the future, Justin.
The most boring dystopia possible. My thermostat is struggling for control of the DNS on my network.
Yeah,
God damn it.
That's the world we're in right now.
Fuck, I replaced my Nest with a dumb thermostat like a couple days ago, and a few weeks before that, I yanked all the Googles out of my house. I think I'm slowly going back to the Stone Age.
You know, it does sound like a good idea right now. Also, a few weeks ago, you'd been talking on the show about how you were installing Lineage OS on your phone and everything.
Yeah.
And I had gotten this idea a few weeks ago that I wanted to install Lineage OS on my Shield, my NVIDIA Shield, my Android TV.
Yeah, sure.
And I wanted to see how it worked on there, because I've got two Shields. So if it fucked it, I've still got the other one.
Yeah.
So I did it on my bedroom Shield. And the main reason is I was just sick of that advertisement on the home screen of Android TV these days, where like the whole top third of the screen is just a big ass advertisement.
Yeah,
often
and then your apps are way down at the bottom. Your favorites list or whatever is down below. Yeah,
and it's often an advertisement for something I don't even have that service, and I don't want that service. And sometimes it's not even for a movie or a TV show. The other day it was a car, and I was like, I'm not buying a car, Google. So I wanted to get rid of that, so I figured I'd try Lineage. And Lineage for Shield is running a newer version of Android than what NVIDIA supports on the Shield. So it's running Android 14.
Nice.
But what I learned is Android TV specifically as an interface, because you know how when you install Lineage, you have to, you optionally can add in the Google apps, the G apps,
right, you got to do it as part of the flashing process.
Right.
Yeah.
So Android TV absolutely requires that. There is no getting around it. You cannot run Android TV without it. It will just crash all the time when it tries to do anything.
Yeah.
So I did have to load in the Google apps, which is fine. Whatever. It lets me easily load stuff on there. And then once it came up, I learned that the new home screen on Android TV, the one that's half advertisement, that's not part of the OS. That is something that Google is injecting. But because
God damn it,
because I'm running Android TV with just generic vanilla Google apps, I don't get it on this Lineage OS. It's the old-fashioned like Android 9 TV home screen,
nice,
from 7-8 years ago, and it's so nice. Everything seems to be working perfectly except for Netflix, because Netflix will check both the hardware and the OS to determine if you are an authorized device.
Well, they got to stop all that piracy that definitely doesn't happen anymore, Saturn. So
Unfortunately, I don't use Netflix, so I don't care about that. So I'm just going to keep using Lineage on the one on my bedroom. But I figured I'd try a different approach on the one in my living room just to see if I could try something else. So I tried Projectivity Launcher. Have you tried that?
I've not.
It is a replacement home screen for Android TV. That is just a peaceful nature background, and it is 100% fully customizable.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can set up exactly what apps you want on there, what kind of feeds you want on there, what kind of lists you want on there, and it's great. It's just a great home screen, and honestly, I might like it better than I like the Lineage setup, just because it's a generic stock NVIDIA Android, so it has access to all my stuff on there.
Yeah, I gave up the fight a while back and just hooked a Windows 10 desktop up to my living room TV with a wireless keyboard and mouse, and immediately felt such relief.
Well, fortunately, Windows is never going to throw advertisements at us. So
no, it's good. Yeah, I'm already. It's on Windows 10 for as long as it can stay there, and then I'm going to have to switch to Linux.
October?
Is that the cutoff date?
That's the end date for Windows 10.
Jeez,
October,
well, I'll be switching to Linux Mint then. It should run great on that machine.
Yeah. Oh, there's a handful of Linux distros, or not distros. There's a handful of desktop environments that are specifically designed for TV use, so you might look into that too.
No, it's just going to be a desktop OS. I'm fucking over it, man. Just hook up a regular ass computer to shit. I'm done. I'm done with it. I'm so over.
I had a big
smart
ass desktop,
shit.
Right. I had a big ass desktop computer plugged into my main television from like 04 through 2014 or something.
Yeah.
And it was great. I missed that.
Let's do some news.
Yeah.
First up, EA has released the source code for several Command & Conquer games, including the original Red Alert, Renegade, and Generals. And Tiberian Sun was in that mix too, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
I believe so, which is the one I'm most excited about. Because Tiberian Sun, as we talked about on the episode, is so weird and different and still interesting. So I'm it's good on them. We don't say good job EA very often, but good job EA. And I checked, and they are under, I believe, the GPL 3. Yeah. So it's not some bullshit ass license. It's just kind of straight up like, here's the code.
And it's not the first time that the EA has done this either, because they did the same thing to SimCity back in the day.
Yep, all very exciting. CRKD and Gibson are releasing a new plastic gaming guitar compatible with Fortnite Festival and Clone Hero. Also, some old blocky games like Guitar Hero and Rock Band. I saw this. First of all, it's $100, which is a lot. It better be goddamn nice, because I own some plastic guitars, and they're not worth $100.
Right.
I still play Guitar Hero on my 360, and I'm kind of like, do I want to get like a nice, maybe? Like,
now, this is not compatible with 360.
Is it? As I was going to ask, but 360 is just USB. It should work.
Right, but the 360 only works with 360 specific input controllers.
Well, I'll stick with mine then.
So
this
is compatible
cool.
with PS3 as well as PS4 and Xbox One, I believe.
This is cool. I'm glad it exists. It's the era of plastic gaming instruments was as wide as it was deep. And it's a part of gaming that I don't think either you or I want to see go away. And it kind of has been sort of rotting a little bit.
True. Just like the guitars.
The licenses and the peripherals on these games were not built to stand the test of time. They were a right now thing. So I'm glad that Clone Hero, which is a free PC clone of Guitar Hero.
Very similar to Stepmania, which is the free
DDR,
open source DDR clone. I also, unrelated to this, but I had saw there's a new Guitar Hero coming out.
What?
Microsoft Activision is releasing a new Guitar Hero for mobile devices.
Why do you fucking do this to me, Saturn?
Yeah.
Why? This is look. I mean, like, I'm gonna try it. I have the DS version of Guitar Hero, for Christ's sakes.
That was actually pretty good.
God damn it. Anyway,
you know what was good was PSP Rock Band.
Was it?
Yeah, because PSP Rock Band is really just a sequel to Frequency and Amplitude and Everything But Name, and it's really good. It's really
interesting.
Good.
Yeah. Super Soccer has been removed from NSO, presumably for licenses running out.
Yeah, possible license reasons. The original Japanese version was made by Human Entertainment, which I think Spike Chunsoft owns the rights to now.
Yeah. Just a quick reminder that on Virtual Console, when you bought a game, you were entitled to being able to re-download that, even if it was delisted, theoretically, probably. But for NSO, they can
for the few that were delisted, you could still re-download them.
Right. For NSO, they just yank it whenever they want,
take it away.
And you'll just never have it again.
Yeah.
So just
once
a reminder,
again, subscriptions are not ownership.
Yeah, just a reminder about ownership. Something I'm living in real time right now.
Really, digital purchases in general are not ownership.
Right, but there's degrees. Like, I would say you kind of own a GOG game that has no DRM. You got to make a backup. You have to take steps to make sure you have access to it.
Right. I was just reading earlier today that apparently a bunch of people had taken advantage of what was very clearly a glitch in the Microsoft Store that effectively gave you a free copy of Alan Wake on Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
And now 3 or 4 weeks later, Microsoft has started sending messages to all those users saying, "Sorry, it's been removed from your library. You don't own this anymore." So they can just take things away whenever they want. And granted, that one was at least a worthwhile reason, but they can just take things away.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand nothing's forever. Even if you download it on a hard drive, that hard drive could die. Your disk could have bit rot. You could lose it. There's all sorts of things. But you have a legal right to something that you have that you have ownership of.
Right.
Japanese publisher Super Deluxe is releasing physical versions of the Castlevania collections in case anyone missed out on LRG's limited prints. Kind of seems like LRG stuff isn't that rare if they're just going to release it with other people.
Well, this is Japan exclusive release.
Okay. But I mean, they're still the same games.
They are, and in fact, they still have the English versions on them.
So hit up PlayAsia, and then you don't have to give LRG money, although they don't want your money for it right now anyway. They won't take it because they won't give you one.
And this is just the Switch and PS4 versions, so you will not be able to get a reprint of the Xbox version of, I think only Advanced Collection and Dominus got Xbox ports, but yeah.
Square Enix and LRG, of course, have confirmed that the Gex trilogy will release this summer. I'm sorry. Square Enix does not need to use limited run games to print games. They print games all the fucking time.
So I will give them partial credit on this. Because
don't Saturn.
Because Square isn't actually handling this port. LRG is doing the port themselves in-house.
All right, that's fair.
Because LRG has their own porting studio that uses.
Well, yeah, I mean they got tons of resources. They're owned by Embracer.
Embracer, yeah.
I mean they are the corpo industry.
Yes. So they are doing the work. I'll give them credit for that. I still would rather Square just publish it themselves because they publish games.
Yeah.
But
a fan project has recompiled the Xbox 360 version of Sonic Unleashed into a native Windows/Linux game. This is very exciting.
Yeah.
Although the team has been clear that the source code for the recompiler, which they've released, isn't really fully exactly one-to-one compatible with other 360 games.
Right.
Regardless, it's a huge amount of groundwork. Xbox and Xbox 360 especially emulation are still leagues behind other systems from those generations.
Yeah.
So hopefully this means that we will see some more native PC ports of games I give a shit about playing because I don't want to play Sonic Unleashed.
And they said that the reason they were able to do this at all was because of how much source code was shared between Sonic Generations and Sonic Unleashed. And Sonic Generations did get a PC port. So they were able to just look at how that one works and then compare it against this Xbox version and be like, oh, I think we can make all this happen.
One thing I'm real hopeful for in the future of, preservation is these, because we're seeing a lot of N64 ones, and they're so good, is these native PC decompilations.
Yeah.
I want them so bad.
Oh,
it's
this one
so
is
cool.
This one is not a full decompilation. It is a recompilation, meaning that they did not write human-readable source code. They just asked a computer to make computer-readable source code for it.
I
so
see.
If someone tries to go in and tinker with the source code for this, they're just going to see a bunch of garbage.
Well, still, it's a step.
Yeah.
It's a step.
Definitely a good step, and I hope that it is a signal of good things to come.
Bandai Namco has trademarked a new Katamari name. Possibly a new game, or some mobile shit, or a skateboard. Who knows? We'll see. See what happens.
That's the downside of anytime we see this information about classic games now. It's just like, what are they going to fuck us with? Is this going to be a line of designer T-shirts?
I wouldn't mind a Katamari T-shirt. I'd be upset, but I'd buy the T-shirt.
Right.
Level 5 Concept, the studio behind Mighty No. 9, has been shut down. I'm kind of shocked they made it this long.
Right. Well, they were propped up by Level 5 for quite a while there.
True. But man, Mighty No. 9 did not perform.
No. And I don't know that they've released anything since then, did they? Maybe some mobile stuff or something. I don't know.
Publisher Acclaim appears to be back under new ownership, claims they will be supporting indie developers and, quote, reigniting classic franchises. Whatever.
Okay,
sure.
So here's my thing about this. What classic franchises? Because they don't own the rights to Acclaim's library at all. Because that was all auctioned off when Acclaim shut
Maybe
down.
they mean they're going to purchase someone else's classic franchises and reignite those.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be Chuck Rock.
No, that's owned by Sony.
Ah, shit. Activision has confirmed Tony Hawk 3+4 and removed career mode from 4. Is this correct information?
Yeah, apparently it had, what's his name from Jackass in it?
It had Bam Margera in it, sure, but they couldn't have just... God damn it.
No, so they're replacing the career mode with something closer to the career mode from the first 3 games, is what they said.
But the career mode in 4 was so good. Look, I've already pre-ordered this. I'm a big Tony Hawk fan. I loved 3 and 4. 4, out of the first 4 was my favorite. I played that one the most. That's a huge blow to this collection. I'm very upset about that. But also, they let you play as Doom Guy if you pre-order, and skateboarding Doom Guys is now every square in my bingo card for forever. I want that in my life.
I wonder if we could somehow get a crossover of skateboarding Doom Guy versus skateboarding Solid Snake.
It would be great. I think originally Tony Hawk 3 had either Wolverine or Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
What was it? Spider-Man?
Yeah, Spider-Man, because Neversoft developed Tony Hawk and the PS1 Spider-Man games.
Yes. I don't know if Spider-Man's going to return, but we'll see.
I would be shocked if that were the case.
A French court has sided with Nintendo in their long-fought legal battle against file-sharing website DStorage. File-sharing sites, at least in Europe, will now be liable for the content users upload. This is a massive blow.
Yeah.
They also won a $7 million USD lawsuit against counterfeit amiibo sellers. This is a step in the wrong direction. Not what we want to see.
Yeah, now the amiibo sellers, they were clearly just selling fake amiibos.
Yeah,
so,
that's a different story. But
penalizing file sharing websites for shit that their users upload, that's concerning. I don't like
that's
that.
how you get file sharing websites to remove any semblance of user privacy, because now they're scanning and looking at literally everything you share on these file sharing websites, which most of them probably are anyway. But now it will be more blatant and obvious.
It'll be open about it.
Intentional.
Good. My Nest finally changed its IP address. It's all safe now. It's good. It's good. Just giving you an update.
New MSX2 game Night Stalker looks to be an homage to the classic Castlevania games, or Vampire Killer. Weren't they called Vampire Killer on MSX, or were they actually properly called Castlevania?
So in Japan it was called Akumajo Dracula, but in Europe it was called Vampire Killer on MSX. So it just depends on what region you're in. Anyway, but yeah, it's neat. I am excited that there's a new MSX2 game coming out. That's exciting to me. I like that idea.
It's weird.
Right?
Nintendo has run out of parts for the 2DS and 3DS XL repairs. Will immediately end service for those platforms. If you need parts and you're the kind of person that demands OEM parts, or maybe the parts you need should be OEM, things like screens and batteries and stuff that you don't really want to mess around with, then now's the time to
good luck.
Find what you need and get it.
Systems are already exorbitantly priced, so this isn't going to help. Yeah.
It's insane how there seemed to be no period of, hey, now 3DS stuff is cheap junk and you can just pick up a bunch of it. It skipped it entirely.
Yeah,
I'm real nervous the Switch is going to skip it entirely too.
Yeah.
A little nervous about that.
Right.
And then finally, Discord is exploring an IPO because fuck us and everything we care about, right?
Right.
I want to say this on the show so people know. I've not mentioned it anywhere else. No, I mentioned it in the chat, I think. We have a revolt.chat server up. Revolt.chat is free, open source. It's basically just like, hey, look, we cloned Discord and it's not quite as functional. We've already got a server up. We've already got accounts on it. If Discord shits the bed, that's where we will go.
I believe you described it to me as great value Discord.
Yeah, it's very much great value Discord. Because I tried Matrix, but it does that federation thing where there's a bunch of different clients, and I know that can be confusing to people. Also, Matrix is just really different than Discord, so there's stuff to learn. Revolt is just like, hey, we've literally done Discord, and it looks and acts like Discord with slightly less function.
We cheated off of Discord's homework.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on the mobile apps to leave beta, and then we're going to explore moving there. So for anyone that's worried about what happens to our community when Discord shits the bed, we already have escape routes. We also have a Matrix server up, too, in the case that Revolt shits the bed. Like, we've got plans.
Yeah.
So don't worry about being able to hang out with us. We will persevere.
Yes.
But man, please Discord, just don't.
Right? Please don't.
Just don't fuck it up.
Just don't.
Speaking of please don't fuck it up, that brings us to our topic at hand, which is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
That was a good segue.
The first part of a 3-part series of remakes that may be finished just in time for the first entry to be remade on the next generation of platforms.
On the PlayStation 12.
On the PlayStation 12.
Yeah.
This is the first part of a 2-part episode. The Saturn wrote will be delaying the second episode and requiring you to buy newer hardware to be able to listen to it.
Yeah.
This episode is going
just like the real game
to do its best not to spoil anything in case you are listening to a Final Fantasy VII Remake podcast and still don't know what's going to happen in the game. But there will be possibly some minor spoilers. But this episode is going to be mostly design, gameplay, stuff like that. We're going to save all the story discussion for the next episode.
There may be some mild spoilers for the original FF7, but definitely not any for the new one in this episode.
Yeah, so if you're spoiler sensitive, you should be able to mostly safely listen to this episode. If you're spoiler sensitive, you cannot listen to the next episode.
No,
I mean, you can. I won't stop you. But,
unless you've already played the game, then it doesn't matter anyway.
Right. Then you do whatever you want. We're not talking to you.
We're
not talking to you. Release info. This was developed by Square Enix Business Division 1, which is the most evil-sounding developer name of all time.
Well, that's the name of the division that extracts all the Mako from the planet.
I get like, holy shit, Square Enix Business Division 1.
All of Square Enix's development arms had the most like generic corporate names for a while. There was also Creative Division 1 and they've just recently started to rename them to sound slightly less bad. They still sound bad.
Like, did they hire George fucking Orwell to name all their different divisions? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
So weird. This released on PS4 on the 10th of April 2020, PS5 10th of June 2021, and PC on the 16th of December 2021.
It was 5 years ago this game came out.
Oh my God, shut up. Shut the fuck up. First Encounters, I played the demo on PS4. They announced it. I immediately pre-ordered the limited edition, and I played the demo, and then canceled my pre-order. So I had just right when I was playing the demo on PS4 bounced off of Final Fantasy 15 because of the confusing combat system.
Yeah.
And so then I jumped into the Final Fantasy 7 Remake demo, and after seeing that it was pretty similar and only was supposed to cover what I considered to be the most boring part of Final Fantasy 7, which is Midgar,
right?
I was like, I'm going to pass on this. I don't like this combat. Midgar's the boring part that I'm trying to get through to get to the, in air quotes, real game of Final Fantasy 7. It's the prologue.
Right.
And so I never got it. And I kept telling myself I was going to pick it up, or maybe I'd wait till they all released and then pick them all up.
I can just hear Guy grinding his teeth right now.
I was like, I'll do it later. I'll get it when they release all 3 of them in one big package in 10 years or whatever. I don't know. But I got a PS5 recently, and I picked it up on PS5, which, first of all, it was quite a bit cheaper than $70 or whatever it released at.
Yeah. Which is wild because for a little while there it was selling for like $200 on PS5.
No, yeah. It like I got it a good bit below retail.
Yeah.
And in my head, every PlayStation should have Final Fantasy 7 if available. It's like a requirement that all PlayStations, if they can, have Final Fantasy 7.
I mean, you could have downloaded the digital version of the original for $15 on PSN.
Well, I've already got the original, and so that's my Final Fantasy 7 for my PS1, 2, and 3. But then my 4 has the digital version of Final Fantasy 7, and now my 5's got the remake. So you got to have Final Fantasy 7 on every PlayStation.
I got you.
That's just
well, 2 doesn't have it. You could have Dirge of Cerberus, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess I'll have to get that now. Anyway, that's mine. I finally did sit down and play it when I got a PS5. Right. That's what pushed me over the edge.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I talked about it on the show when I played it like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'd gotten it when the PS4 version came out. You know, right as COVID lockdowns were starting.
It would have been right in that time frame.
And then I didn't start playing it until several months after that because I was in the middle of playing other things. But it was a game.
It is and was a game.
Yeah.
Step me through the development of 7 Remake. I'm sure it's very succinct. They want all the money.
Yeah.
And so they're going to do the Final Fantasy 7s again.
You know, it's really funny how the remake seems to emphasize how greedy and corporate Shinra is, while simultaneously Square Enix has become much more greedy and corporate than they were when Square released the original. Anyway.
Yeah, a lot of the themes hit differently when in full HD 4K HDR and expanded dialogue, and you're like, man, this is really making me think differently.
Yeah, like those themes were still there in the original,
sure,
but they were much more abstract.
Yeah, it was abstract. It was truncated. It was shorter. It was less zoomed in. It was
all Lego people.
It was the set dressing for the fun video game you were playing, and now you're like, man, I'm kind of starting to fucking feel this a little bit. But we'll talk more about that next episode.
Yeah. So as far as development goes, we have to start in '97. That's when the original came out on PS1. It was developed at Square. The team consisted, among other people, of producer and series creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, as well as director and co-writer Yoshinori Kitase, as well as character designer and contributing writer Tetsuya Nomura. Another contributing writer was Kazushige Nojima, composer Nobuo Uematsu, logo designer Yoshitaka Amano. Game did pretty well.
It sold a couple PlayStations.
There's it sold me my PlayStation.
It was because we've talked about it on the show before. Final Fantasy, you were into RPGs well before Final Fantasy VII. For people in my age category, because in 97 I was 9, this was like, what are these role-playing game things that people are suddenly talking about?
For people in my age group, it was too, because a lot of the people because I was in high school at the time. I was a freshman in high school when FF7 came out, and I distinctly remember other people in my grade who like I was, acquaintances with, not like close friends, but I knew them and I was on, relatively good terms with them. But they weren't like people that I regularly talked to, started coming up to me and being like, hey, you know that Final Fantasy thing, right? Like, I've heard you mention that before. What? Yeah.
What's up?
How do I beat this boss on the elevator?
Yeah. And then you're like, that's great, but let me tell you about Tecmo's Secret of the Stars.
No, I did not do that. I was basically the tip guy for half of the freshman class of my high school. Is people coming up to me like, how do I beat this boss in Final Fantasy? Or what is a materia? Or why does it keep giving me these potions? What even do they do?
Yeah.
So it was a lot of that. So yeah, it was my age group too. Did not play RPGs prior to FF7. The game did pretty well. Around the time the PS2 launched in 2000, Square had announced that they were beginning the process of releasing remakes of Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 for PS2.
Mm-hmm. How'd that go?
This is very similar to how they did re-releases of Final Fantasies 4, 5, and 6 on PS1.
Yeah, so badly?
I don't know if they stopped to think about it first, but you can play the PS1 versions on PS2.
No. That's not possible. 9 came out during the PS2's lifetime.
Yes, it came out after the PS2 came out.
It kind of was like an honorary PS2 game, right? in a way. I mean, I imagine a lot of people played it on PS2.
Oh, I did. I played it on my PS2. So they started the planning for these remakes, and the team quickly realized that if they wanted to improve the graphical capabilities of the game to match the PS2, that there was no way they'd ever finish. They just
too big of a project.
They've got too many other things going on. They're already working on other newer sequels and stuff. They could not do this, so they just quietly canceled it. And in 2004, Square Enix released Before Crisis Final Fantasy VII on Japanese mobile phones, which was the first entry of what would become what they call the compilation of Final Fantasy VII, which remains the stupidest name.
Exactly the kind of output I would expect from Square Enix Business Division 1.
Exactly. And compilation was a series of spin-off games, movies, other media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure, yeah. Advent Children, the PSP games, all
Dirge
that.
Dirge of Cerberus, all the good stuff.
All the ones.
So, they were giving FF7 some attention, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And while they were developing the tool set of what would be used to make Final Fantasy 13, which is called Crystal Tools, Square Enix was given an opportunity to showcase that engine in a presentation that was going to show off the PS3 before its release at E3 2005. This was Sony approached Square. They were like, hey, we want some of your Final Fantasy in our PS3 reveal trailer.
Yeah.
But the thing is, FF13 wasn't far enough along. They didn't want to include that because there's a good chance they'd be changing characters, changing story elements, whatever. They didn't want to have something that was not at all indicative of the final product because apparently they hadn't fallen into that trap of always showing things not indicative of the final product like they would do for the following 10 years.
There was some amount of integrity. There's a single shred of it left that was fluttering in the noonday breeze.
Right. That guy must have been fired immediately after this decision.
Yeah, the one guy that was like, let's not just lie to people. And they're like, get him the fuck out of Square Enix Business Division 1.
What's he even doing here? This is Business Division 3 material.
It's that meme where they're in that boardroom and then at the last panel, a guy gets thrown out of the window. It was...
So instead of showing FF13, they used their Crystal Tools engine to remake the intro of FF7, and they showed that at E3 2005.
Yeah.
And that went over pretty well. People lost their shit because they were like, oh my God, Final Fantasy VII's coming to PS3. And Sony and Square Enix both immediately had to be like, no, we're not. That's not going to happen. We're not releasing Final Fantasy. No,
who could anticipate that this would happen except any company that saw Nintendo when they released the GameCube tech demo?
Seriously,
Link fighting Ganon.
It wasn't that long ago. So there was some pushback, and so the reps from Square Enix had to constantly rebut this. Like every trade show, somebody would be like, "So when's Final Fantasy VII coming out on PS3? We saw that demo," and they're like, "No, that was just a video. Please don't
Can
Don't
you
think
imagine
any
how
of it.
nervous they were when they announced the PS1 Classic was coming to PS3?
Yeah,
They're
right.
like, be very
man.
clear.
Yeah, when the PS4 re-release of it came out, oh man, people were unhappy. So yeah, after several years of them having to tell people, no, it's not happening. Sakaguchi had left Square Enix. The brand management for the Final Fantasy franchise was handed over to a guy, Shinji Hashimoto, who was a producer who'd been with Square since the mid-90s. And according to a Famitsu interview, Hashimoto approached Kitase and Nojima and Nomura about finally working on the remake because, quote, they were getting so old that if they didn't start now, they wouldn't survive long enough to make it. Now, these guys were born...
That's a fair fucking point.
These guys were born in 66, 64, and 70.
Not that old, but,
And this was in around 2015.
Oh, so they would have been like 50s?
Yeah, or between 45 and 50.
Look, I've played JRPGs. 45 is dead. You might as well be dead. What's that one? Is it one of the Mega Man Battle Networks where it's that old man in the text box is like, I'm 35 years old. Right. He's got like a cane.
Oh man, yeah, I love looking at manuals for old Super NES era RPGs where you got the wizened old sage and it's like age 40.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he was able to convince them by telling them how decrepit and ancient they were.
Yeah.
And Nomura was simultaneously working on Kingdom Hearts 3 at the time.
Sure.
So he brought on Naoki Hamaguchi, who had worked with them on Final Fantasy 13. As well as Matomo Toriyama from Final Fantasy X to assist with direction of the remake, though Nomura did eventually end up taking over in general.
Yeah.
And it was finally announced at E3 2015, 10 years after the previous demo.
Mm-hmm. And still 5 years before it would have released.
Yeah, 5 years before it would release.
My God.
Which implies that it was before 2015 that he told them they were too fucking old.
Yeah.
These are guys in their 40s, and he's like, you're basically dead.
Yep. Look, man, if it takes him this long to announce shit and then make it, maybe he's got a fucking point.
Right? Took him 5 years to make it, and then another 5 years to make the second one. So, there's something to it. So they started actually working on it sometime in 2015, we assume. That's when it was announced. The announcement went over very, very well. People were very excited.
Oh, people lost their minds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, lost their minds.
I remember having the conversation of like, how are they even going to do that?
Right.
How do you remake Final Fantasy VII, which was such a product of 1997?
Yeah.
Like, how do you even go about that? If you do it 1-to-1, that'll make fans happy, but it'll feel weird.
And it won't really draw in a new audience.
But then if you redo the thing and make it different, it won't appease the fans, but maybe you'll get some new people. And it turns out they did that one.
That's the route they wanted.
Yeah. Anyway, tell us about the actual making of the game.
So it was originally conceived to simply remake the original with new graphics.
Okay, sure.
And then they realized that a lot of the mechanics would look and feel ridiculous with higher fidelity graphics.
Whatever do you mean? You mean Saturn, or you mean Cloud bursting out of a Mako reactor with his ass on fire wouldn't look good in full HD graphics?
In fairness, it was Wedge that had his ass on fire.
Was it Wedge? All right, yeah.
Which
they took it out. I was looking for the ass on fire.
No, very upset.
And it was not. I was like, someone's ass is going to be on fire, and they took it out, and I was like, fuck you, Square Enix.
Actually, I think. Well, no, it was a different scene where he gets shot in the ass, and Jesse smacks him on the ass. Anyway,
minor spoilers. There's no asses on fire in this game. Just sorry to disappoint. Right. Nobody's ass is on fire.
Yeah, that's a lack of ass fires. So initially, the thought was to just reuse a lot of the assets from Advent Children.
All right.
But the engine that the film was made on was so dated by this point that the models were hard to work with and weren't fitting together right with the rest of Square Enix's tools. So they ended up having to...
And this is kind of jumping forward to presentation. It was kind of jarring to have seen the Advent Children representations of these being kind of the default versions of the HD versions of these characters.
Right.
And then seeing them be different actually in Remake.
Yeah.
It was very, I was like, it's like a weird, like, off-brand version, because I'm so used to Cloud and Sephiroth and everyone looking like their Advent Children versions.
Right. Which are much more human-ish than the ones in this.
Yeah.
And one of the big changes that they determined early on was to completely revamp the combat system to make it more action-oriented. And since Square Enix has such a great track record with action games, they brought in Teruki Endo, who had previously been the lead combat designer for Monster Hunter 3, 4, and World. And so that is who you can blame for the combat system in FF7 Remake.
All right. Okay.
Series composer Uematsu had mostly retired at this point. Now he's completely retired, but he had mostly retired by this point. So composition duties were taken up by other people, specifically a former Square Enix employee who had already left at this point, which was Masashi Hamautsu, and series veteran Mitsuto Suzuki. Can't speak all of a sudden. And they mostly remixed Uematsu's original tracks with his input. He did make the one new track, which was the vocal track used in the closing credits.
Which didn't love.
I think it's all right.
It's okay. I don't know. It feels very like 90s montage.
I remember you being very confused by it when we saw the concert a couple of years ago.
We did, because we went to see the concert.
Remake concert.
Yeah, all the music, it was all the music from Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Because I hadn't played the game yet.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Replaying it, I noticed that there's a few remixes of that song that are instrumental in a few areas of the game, specifically in the Sector 5 slums.
Yeah.
And I dig on it. I like the instrumental remix a little bit better than the actual vocal version.
Yeah.
The scenario for what would end up being this first game was completed by the end of 2015. They'd finished writing what would eventually become the first Remake game. But then scope creep happened, and the project started taking longer and longer and longer and longer. So they pushed it back and back until eventually we got it in 2020. There were efforts taken prior to release to downplay any of the changes in the story to ensure that the new elements would be a surprise to returning players. Also, so the new players wouldn't feel like they were missing out on something if they didn't play the original.
Right.
Katase has said in several interviews that the reveal of Sephiroth in the original game is put off for several hours until after the whole Midgar segment in order to keep building anticipation. He specifically credits the movie Jaws.
Yeah.
How for the first hour of the movie you'd just hear about the shark and you never see it. And so he wanted to go with that in the original, and when they were making the remake, they were all like, well, that won't work because then he won't be in this game at all.
Also, everyone has seen the guy. Everyone knows, even if you haven't played Final Fantasy VII, you know Sephiroth is. If you've never seen
He's
Star
the guy
Wars,
from Smash Brothers.
You know who Darth Vader is. You know, you don't. He's just one of the classic pop culture villains that.
Yeah.
I imagine there's
everybody
a large
knows who Darth Vader is. He's the guy from Soul Calibur.
Right.
Yeah.
Not wrong. I just wish you were. It's he's just one of the classic gaming villains now, so you can't not have him. And we'll talk more about how they bring him into the game in next episode, because I have a lot to say about it. But I suffice to say that I think that was a smart choice.
Yeah, I think they kind of had to. So
especially if you're making it 3 games, you can't not have him in a Final Fantasy VII game.
Yeah, I mean they could have hyped up a different villain and just used that. Maybe if they had introduced Rufus super early and then just hyped him up over and over, they could have used him as a final boss.
He did, but I'm not.
But you don't want to just throw Sephiroth in the trash. That's an important character.
Let's talk presentation.
Yeah.
I do want to say visually, I do. So here's the thing. I love how Sephiroth looked. I liked his kind of redesign. Of course, none of them got radical redesigns. But I like how he
got some badass shoulder pads.
Do what?
Sephiroth got some badass shoulder pads.
He just got cool shoulder pads. He looks very kind of almost inhuman. He's huge and looming, and it's they just did a good job.
Very brooding and ominous.
Yeah, they did a good job making him just kind of fucking creepy and weird. Cloud feels so young.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what his actual age is.
18 or 19, if I remember right.
So this is the thing, is I was playing it and I was like, I think he's supposed to be a teenager, so he looks right.
Yeah.
I've just his Advent Children version felt older.
Well, that's supposed to be several years after, too.
True, yeah, so he would be. And in the original game, I always just imagined him as older.
Right.
But he's not, he's a kid.
Yeah.
And so I ended up really coming to enjoy Cloud's
I'm sorry, he's supposed to be 21. in the original.
Either way, that's still pretty young.
Yeah, that's still young.
But he just looks really young, and so I was really kind of taken aback by how young he looked. Everyone else, I think Barrett's redesign was great. I love how they kept him just fucking gargantuan.
There's several scenes where like Barrett has to hold somebody's hand or something, and I'm like, he's gonna crush it. He's about to crush that person.
Me and Courtney,
like he could fit Tifa's entire torso in his hand.
Me and Courtney have been working out, and I talked to her a lot about like, I'm trying to work on these muscle groups or whatever, and I was playing it, and she just looked up from her book while Barrett was fully engulfing someone's hands, and she goes, "Is that how big you want to be?"
Yeah,
and I was like, that would be awesome. He's gigantic. Yeah. I love that they kept him huge. Because he was huge in the original game. I mean, comparatively, to the other characters.
I saw somebody make a meme that was a crossover between FF7 Remake and Yakuza, where it's the first scene where Barrett appears in this, but they put the text from Yakuza over it that just says "Massive Man."
No, I love it. I really, I liked all the visual redesigns. There wasn't a single visual design. The only one that I was a little weirded out by was Cloud, because again, I'm used to Advent Children Cloud that looks much more older and mature. I think I enjoyed that they kept this relational scale of everyone.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to make them all more normal human scale compared to one another.
Yeah.
They're a little
abstracted.
Cartoonish. Yeah.
I'd seen an interview where Nomura said he specifically wanted it to be a mix of Advent Children and anime.
I could see that totally.
Characters.
The music, I liked the music a lot. There was one track, and it was when you were like on those little zip lines with Jesse.
Oh yeah.
And it's like this like very like 80s guitar rock ballad sounding track. And they didn't play it ever again in the game that I heard, and it was my favorite track in the whole game.
Yeah, there's a handful of those that are only used one time during a story sequence.
Yeah, I was so sad because I like that something about like which I'm not spoiling anything, but that entire moment was very impactful. But the guitar backing on it, I was like, this is incredible, and I wanted that scene to be there or that song to be there a bunch more times. They never did. Yeah. It was a lot of more very traditional Final Fantasy VII stuff, which is good.
One thing I will say is I really appreciate that this game doesn't go the route that a lot of other modern games do, where they just completely eliminate the soundtrack and just make it more like a big budget picture, where there's just like the
generic
random incidental sounds in the background that kind of act like music, but no, this has the actual melodic music like we're used to from Final Fantasy games, and I appreciate that. Unlike 16.
Yeah. I see you have performance in here, so I'll just mention I did play the PS5 version on a PS5 in performance mode, and it was a deadlocked 60 FPS at least the entire time. Ran great on PS5, which it should. It's a PS4 game, so it fucking better run great on PS5 in performance mode, and had no issues there.
I played the DLC on my PS5, and I had no issues there. It was fine. The PS4 version also was fine when I played through that. I don't remember there being any major performance issues. PC version, on the other hand, I was getting some wild and drastic frame rate fluctuations. I've got a RTX 3070 with an i7 and 48 gigs of RAM, so I should be able to handle games pretty well. I was struggling to hit 30 frames per second in this. Like, it was frequently hanging out around I would say 25-ish for most gameplay, and then any time a cutscene would start, it would dip to like 11.
Normally for JRPGs, that's fine, but this is very much an action RPG, and that would be that can feel unacceptable for some of the dodging windows you have to maintain.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. If I dropped the game to 1080p, it would get closer to 60 frames per second, but my video card costs as much as a PS5, so therefore I think I should be able to get close to the same performance as one.
Yeah.
But apparently that is not the case. I will say the Steam Deck optimization is pretty damn good. I was getting very good, very solid frame rate on there. It just looks like butt. It looks like PS2 models with smeary textures painted on them. Which when you're playing it on a Steam Deck screen is fine. You can't tell.
Yeah.
It's great, especially in motion fluidly. Looks fantastic.
Yeah.
But when you have it docked to a 4K TV like I do, it looks real bad. It looks real bad.
I I had a couple of graphical aberrations. Like there was one point where I was talking to Chadley and the camera was inside of his head, so I could see the inside of his teeth. There's another time where like the wall textures didn't load, so it looked like a PS1 game, and I was like, "Is this a throwback or did it fuck up?" Like I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
But you know that kind of shit just happens with anything.
I think it's an Unreal Engine game, isn't it?
I think so. Oh, you know what? I take it back. I did have one major issue.
Oh.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but the last 30 minutes of the game, it's a lot of cutscenes, and entirely all of the voices dropped out except for Tifa's.
That's fine. No one else was talking.
And it was very frustrating that all of my hours culminating, this is like the reward videos you get to, they're like, oh, welcome to the end of the game. You get to watch the little movie at the end for good job completing it, and there's no voices. They're gone.
See, Tifa accidentally cast mute on everyone.
And that must be
so
it.
they couldn't talk. Yeah.
We have to talk gameplay.
Yes.
Here at the end of the show. You had put in the notes that it's very linear. This is an extremely linear game. Kind of, I was more linear than I thought it would be, which I don't know what I was expecting. I think maybe I'm just conditioned to less linear experiences these days. I even described it to you as a theme park ride. It's and I stand by that. It's very much like you are strapping in. And there's a couple moments where we'll let you run around a little bit, but you're mostly in this theme park ride. You're from end to end.
I'm going to slightly spoil the reception here, but EGM gave the game a 3 out of 5. And in their review, they said that the game is a meticulously crafted linear path, specifically engineered so that every path you cross will collapse the second you cross it.
It is very much built that way. Now, I don't know that that's a bad thing.
No.
I know that like people like you really enjoy linear experiences.
Yeah, I don't have it does feel a little too linear to me at sometimes, but then it will open up every now and then.
There are moments where they'll be like, here's a little sandbox to play in.
Yeah, Chapter 14 is just exclusively sandbox.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the whole rest of the game is not. So
Chapter 14 kind of feels like where the game wants to start.
Yeah, and then as
they're
soon
like,
as
now
that
it's done.
chapter ends, they're like, never mind. Let's get back on path.
So I guess I'll say this. It's very linear. The pacing's a little weird, but it's kind of gonna be when you're telling the most boring third of a story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and trying to make it fun.
It's not even close to a third of the original game. It's like the first 4 to 5 out of 30 to 40 hours.
It's so yeah, but I don't know. I didn't mind it so much. There was not. There was never a moment where I was like. There were sometimes moments where I was like, "Where was that thing? I need to go to that thing," but I don't remember where it was. Yeah. But never a moment where I'm like, "I don't know how to progress this game."
No. Also, there's a giant indicator at all times.
It's very good.
Exactly where to go.
About like do these exact things.
Yeah.
And so for linear experiences, as long as you always show me how to progress it, I'm a little more okay with it.
Yeah.
What's really frustrating is when you're all locked down and you're like, I'm not sure what to do, and you're just kind of stuck in this little fucking like corner. Like, I guess I just spin in circles. Till I...
just talk to every person over and over until I progress.
This is an action RPG. I guess we need to talk about kind of broader stuff before we get to the combat, which is what I'm like trying to speed to. You've got like it's like third person action game. You control one character at a time. You've got your little mini maps and stuff.
Yep.
There's icons everywhere whenever you need to interact with things. They're very good about like covering the world and like this is where you need to go, this is where you need to interact with stuff. And even when there's things like, hey, just go to this area and find something, they give you a big like circle, like it's going to be in this circle.
Right.
We're not going to tell you where, but it's somewhere in there.
One thing that bugged me about the PC version is the little interact icon for everything is still a triangle, even when you're not using a PlayStation controller.
Push your triangle key.
Yeah. But there's a little text right underneath it that says, press Y to interact.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
How weird.
I know.
Let's talk about the weapon system.
Yeah.
Weapons can be upgraded.
Yep.
And I like the idea of a weapon upgrade system a lot because
all I do is immediately buy all the materia slots and then put it on auto.
Well, I was doing it manually at first. Now, the weapon upgrade system, my problem is that each and every weapon you get, you have to manually, well, you don't have to, but you may manually upgrade each component of it. Right. And if you want that fine-grained control, it's great, and I did it for a little bit, but then you can also just flip it to one of 3 settings, which is like auto, or which is balanced, aggressive, or defensive. I love the idea of upgrading weapons because it gives you an excuse to still use these other items. Instead
well, also the unlocking the ability with them is the excuse to go back to them.
Yeah, every weapon comes with its own ability that is if you use it enough, you learn it permanently.
Yeah.
But then the weapons just have different stats that are once they're upgraded, they're not necessarily better or worse, they're just different from each other a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Some
are offensive, some are magic, and et cetera, et cetera.
And I like that because it really lets you sort of customize your loadout and gives you an excuse to use other stuff instead of just auto-equip the best thing and then never look at the old shit.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. I like that because the upgrade system is automatic. You can automate it if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a cool, fun way to make items more relevant that you can opt out of the tedious part of. Like, just overall very well done. If you're the kind of person that you're like, I want to zoom in and zero in on getting maximum materia slots and I don't care about anything else like you did, then cool, you can do that. If you want to just be like, let's go all offensive or let's whatever, you can do that. I think it adds a lot of customizability and in a fun way that gives you a reason and an excuse to be using all the items you get instead of just doing the RPG thing of auto-equip the best thing and then run to the next objective. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Also, you can see the little materias on all the weapons.
Yeah. Well, not all your materia, though.
No,
only as many as it could hold
the
by
default slots. Yeah. But I still thought that was a cool touch.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
It's adorable. Yeah.
Which I guess takes us to materia.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the same deal as the original game.
Very similar as the original.
You slot it in. It gives abilities based on its type. You can link certain materias that have linking abilities that make them do different stuff.
There's a lot more materia in Midgar than in the original, but then it's also a full-length game in Midgar this time. So
I was curious, and you had put it in the notes that there was a lot of materia juggling. There are sections of the game where you're changing party members.
Yeah.
And I felt like I didn't have enough materia. So I was having to unequip and re-equip and move stuff around to get what I needed where I needed it to be.
Yeah, I was just juggling between people to make sure that I always had what I wanted on my current party. And also, like, I would have more materia than I could equip at a given time, so I'd have to, take off this element and put on this element and whatever based on what I was fighting.
I do like that summon materia gets its own dedicated slot.
Yep.
I think it's kind of a nice go-between, because, like, I don't want to waste a slot on it, but I want everyone to have a summon, but then,
I don't like that everybody can only have one summon, though. That makes me sad.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. But honestly, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, summons kind of feel like an afterthought.
Kind of overwhelming, yeah.
Yeah. All the effort they put into the weapon upgrade system and stuff like that, I think kind of detracted from what they could have done with summons.
Right.
Let's talk combat.
Yes.
So that you can be bored and I can be excited. This is very much...
I'm going to be less bored and more annoyed. I did not like the combat in this game.
I go back and forth. There's elements of it I really liked.
Mm-hmm.
So it is an action-based combat. So as soon as you get near enemies, you enter into an action sequence. It's all on the same screen. There's no transition. You have full control over whichever character you're currently controlling, and you can change them. And the game relies heavily on a pressure/stagger system.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it in a lot of games in recent years.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of RPGs in recent years, actually.
Yep.
Pressure can be built in different...
Xenoblade series does it.
Xenoblade did it. I want to say Bravely Default had a pressure system, or maybe was that Octopath? Something like that. Pressure
it was Octopath.
Yeah, pressure can be built in different ways per enemy, which means you kind of are stuck always assessing any enemies to try to figure out the combat trick that they're employing. And while most normal enemies, you can just tackle them with the usual methods of just hit it really hard, bosses and larger enemies, often pressure is built differently and staggering them works differently. Or sometimes they're stronger when pressured, or after they're staggered, they do a different special ability. So you really are forced to always have assess equipped and always be assessing every enemy that you don't already have assessed and looking at their combat data.
I'm just assessing everything because there's a trophy attached to assessing all the enemies.
Right.
I don't actually read what it says, and then I get frustrated when the enemies don't die. That's my approach to combat.
I always read it when it was a big enemy or a boss, because it would have tips. It would tell you what you can and can't steal from them. If there's a weapon you can steal from them, it's in red text. Yeah. And then the yellow text would be like, hey, this is how the pressure and stagger system works on this creature. Um, while I don't know, when Pressure and Stagger worked good, I felt like a genius that had solved the Matrix. But there were also times where like I'd be building pressure or whatever, and then it would just go away, and I didn't understand what I did wrong.
And there's also some that when you do stagger them, it lasts for like 1 second.
Yeah, and you're like, how do I maintain
recover?
the stagger? And then you know, certain
and Chadley wants you to 200% stagger something, and that's
I can get to 160. That's my max.
I did it on the original, but I don't remember how I did it, so I need to go back and look at how I did that.
All this to say, there is some combat depth here outside of the usual Final Fantasy VII RPG stuff of fire and heal and attack and limit breaks and all that, which I appreciate. I appreciate the idea of adding some complexity and depth. And I do think this is more fun than the weird, like, hanging off of buildings and walls shit that Final Fantasy 15 did.
Yeah, I like 15 more.
Like 15.
My thing with 15 is, one, when I go into my menu, it legitimately pauses combat. It's not just, like, super slow.
Yeah.
And two, I am not tied to an ATB gauge. So if I need to heal in an emergency, I just can. And it doesn't care.
ATB, I think, is problematic in this game. I don't think it's bad, but I think it is weird. I do think this action system being married to JRPG menus in general is just kind of weird, the same way it was in 15.
Yeah.
It just feels kind of like two things bolted to each other.
Well, fortunately in 16 they just got rid of the RPG part of it. So, you know.
They both work in their own right. But bolted together, they feel too disparate, weird. I think. Yeah. But I'll say this: when the combat's fun, it's really fun. But when it's frustrating, it's really, really frustrating.
Yeah, that's about where I am with it too.
Each character does have their own gimmick in combat. So, like Barrett can charge up a big, large blast. Cloud can switch to an offensive specific mode. Tifa builds up combos. Aerith has like a charge attack thing she does. Yep. I love this. I think it makes... Go ahead.
I like when Barrett has a melee weapon. Because then he doesn't do his overcharge. He just like sprints at him.
Yeah.
And that's always pretty fun.
I think this is awesome. I think it makes the characters feel distinct. And I think it addresses an issue of the original game. Which is
all the characters felt samey because of the material system.
Everyone does everything. So you can put whatever material... I mean, they're limited by what they can equip.
Right.
But
that is one thing I give this one a lot more credit over the original is it does do a much better job differentiating the characters in combat. Because in the original, they were all cookie cutter aside from their weapons and their limit breaks.
And I love that. Like, I love playing as Barrett. He's just fucking fun as hell to play as. It's and there are some times where, like, just the rhythm of combat fits one of the characters more than another character, and you're switching to them for their special abilities. I think this was...
or if there's mostly ranged enemies.
You can switch to Barrett or Aerith or whoever. I think this was an outstanding way to add differentiation, to add characterization, to make everyone feel different and cool.
And also, because the ATB gauge barely moves when the computer is controlling a character, it gives you some incentive to want to jump between characters just to build everybody's ATB gauge up so that if you do need to heal or use an ability or whatever, that person isn't sitting there waiting for their gauge to fill up.
Right. There are difficulty settings. On the easiest difficulty, well, actually not even on the easiest, because you can do normal or easy and set it to classic mode, where classic mode is when the characters will attack and block and dodge on their own. Instead of
you
having
can still manually control it, though.
You still manually can, but if you're not touching any buttons, your characters will do your basic attacks and dodging and rolling for you. My problem is auto attack is fine for normal battles, but in anything more intense, the computer controls your characters as stupid as possible.
Yes, they are complete idiots.
And since your ATB is built the quickest by attacking, you spend a lot of time just sitting there waiting on your gauge to fill because the computer plays everything safe while also oddly not even trying to dodge or block some really obvious things. What it felt like to me was like watching your little brother try to play the game, where you're like, "Fucking dog, what are you doing? How do you not see it coming?" You know, and you're like, it's frustrating.
Yeah, I couldn't handle the classic mode. I had to switch back to regular. It's too dumb.
I left it on classic because sometimes in really complex battles, I would be thinking too hard and I would forget to dodge or block, and I would get an additional dodge or block because the computer would be smart in that moment.
That's fair.
And so I could kind of just look, like sometimes in the battles I would just have to stop and like look at stuff for a second and what the enemy is doing and what they have going on and be like, all right, I'm going to do this. And so I did leave it on, but I mostly manually controlled my people.
Yeah.
You can block with the right bumper, and you can dodge, which is I never blocked anything. I dodged everything. I don't know why I would block anything.
So I started blocking a lot more this playthrough than I did when I first played it. Because when I first played it, I kept forgetting the block button was there, and I just didn't use it. And then there's a handful of enemies that are locked behind hard mode. You can only play against them in hard mode. And because I was trying to get all the trophies and everything, I had to do that. So playing the game on hard mode, you quickly learn that some of the bosses are impossible if you do not block. And so it taught me to block. And this time, I was blocking the entire time. I have had no game overs this time. It has been just an absolute breeze playing it on normal with a block button. And it makes me feel dumb for not having done it the first time.
I mean, I blocked sometimes, but if I thought I could dodge, I will always. It's just, I don't know if it's the Dark Souls in me or what. If I can dodge it, I'm going to dodge it. I'm not going to try to
That's what I did
block.
the first time I played. Was just dodged everything, and I died several times, but it was mostly fine. But this time, choosing to block instead of dodge whenever it's an obvious attack coming at me, it has saved my ass so much.
Well, what got me was the game told me early on in the tutorial that some enemy attacks were special, and they would have a little red icon that would say they're using whatever ability, and some of those you can't block.
Yeah.
But there's no indicator of which ones I can and can't block before they use the ability.
Right. Yeah.
So I just would dodge everything because I don't know what I can and can't block.
I believe it's the ones like when an enemy grabs you and binds you. I think those are the ones you can't block.
And that's when your character name turns red and you have to switch to a different character to knock them off.
Yeah. And there is a slightly different icon next to the attack name when they're about to use those abilities.
I see. A little too fat. I guess I never noticed it.
Yeah.
I will say, and you may have found the secret unlock that it was because we weren't blocking enough, but I found this game very hard. I remember one battle. It was Tifa and Aerith versus, I think, 7 guard dogs.
Yeah.
And I repeated that battle at least 10 times. I physically could not do it.
Oof.
I did over and over. There are multiple bosses in this game. I would fight 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It was just kind of normal where every boss fight I would die at least once. Yeah, and thankfully, the game just lets you retry right before that boss fight, unless you're at the end of the game and then you got to go back a bunch. But
the first time I played through it, the first time that I had died was when you get to Shiva the first time, because little Chadley lets you challenge summons if you want to. It's optional.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that I needed to do it immediately. And when you get to that point, you're solo. You don't have anyone else in your party. It's just Cloud.
Yeah.
And I think I bashed my head against that fight like 6 times before I finally lucked out.
Yeah.
And this time, I just blocked a lot and just kicked her ass. First time solo.
Shiva was the moment where I was like, I figured the game out because I fought her as soon as I could, and I beat her first try. And I was like, I think I figured it out. I hadn't figured it out, but I thought I did. I don't know what I did different. Maybe I might have just got lucky.
Yeah, this time, I unfortunately I didn't get a chance to finish the game this time before we started recording. I got to I believe the final fight in the second to last chapter.
Yeah, and
then my computer crashed. So unfortunately, I didn't get any further. But I've gone this far without any game overs yet. I'm pretty stoked by that.
That's man, I've had so many.
Yeah.
Let's talk ATB. So the ATB bar does come back.
Yes.
It fills while you're attacking, defending, or actively controlling your character. Any other time, it fills extremely slowly.
Yes.
And frustratingly, when you're in the menus, the entire game slows down to a near stop, which obviously you need because you're looking at a menu.
Right.
It makes sense. Otherwise, you'd get hammered while you're selecting things.
Right.
But it means that I can't even be like looking at abilities and deciding what I want to do while my ATB fills.
Yep.
So a decent portion of a lot of combat is just you and the enemy standing there looking at each other and rolling around Dark Souls style while you wait to be able to do something.
See, I'll already know what I want to do. I'm just sitting there waiting for the ATB to fill up.
Yeah, there's just a lot of standing there like waiting to do the input.
For the most part, it's okay. But the part that it really bugs me, the part that really frustrates me is when you need to heal. Because if none of your characters have an available ATB and you need to heal, your only option is go risk getting your ass kicked trying to fill your ATB, or block and hope for the best that you'll survive until somebody's ATB fills. And
Yeah,
that's
more than often
annoying.
when I died, it's because I was standing there like, shit, I need to heal, and I don't have ATB.
Yeah.
And it turned into a situation where by the end of the game, I would switch to my off characters, fill their ATBs all the way, and then switch back to Cloud, and then just keep them in the background until I needed to heal, which I don't think is what the game really wants you to be doing.
That's what I did pretty much this entire run.
But it worked for me. So, you can press the X and A button to bring up the command menu. You can do this in combat to pull up your abilities and magics and whatever. Out of combat, you can also do it to pull up items and magic. And this is my number one complaint with the game.
Yeah.
To use multiple potions at a time, you press X, go down to items, select potion, and select who you're using it on. That's to use one potion. Yeah. Now, let's say I've got, 120 potions, which is a pretty normal amount of potions to have. And I don't want to waste my mega potions, so I want to use like 50 regular potions.
I maxed out on mega potions by the end.
That means that you have to, well, you know me in JRPGs. I use my mega potions all the time. I used all my elixirs. Like I used fucking everything. I saved the elixirs till the last boss fights at least. But then I did use
2 Phoenix Downs the entire game.
I use 100. I use all my items constantly.
Yeah.
But interface, like I want to go to the pause menu and go to my inventory and use like 10 potions in a row. Yes. Why can't I what kind of fucking oversight?
Yeah, when I'm not in combat, let me do that. Like I get it while I'm in combat. I get that.
Yeah.
But when I'm not in combat, just let me go into a fucking menu and heal everybody. Like Dragon Quest, made by the same fucking company, has a heal all button in its menu that just automatically heals everybody to their max HP. Yeah. Just using whatever the most efficient means of magic necessary. Why can't I have that?
Is that in tandem with only being able to heal and use items when you have ATB, I think it's a design knob. It almost feels like they've intentionally obfuscated healing on purpose so you can't do it constantly to make the game harder. This is just a guess. I'm just totally guessing, but it feels that way.
Right.
Let's talk summons.
Yes.
You have to fill a special summon gauge that appears at some point when it feels like it, when a battle has been happening, or sometimes when a battle is a special boss battle, or sometimes in normal battles for some reason, but then
I
never
think
is
it's
around.
Based on how long the battle is going.
Okay, all right.
I think that's my guess.
And then once you summon your character, which takes ATB, which is really frustrating. Yes. I feel like summons should not take ATB.
Right.
The summons come out and they auto attack, but then you can continue using ATB bars to use their special abilities, which is a neat idea. They're kind of like little Pokemon, but also it ruins the fucking battle. So any battle plan you have, you get to choose between, do I want my summon to do nothing, or do I want to give up whatever strategy and healing I'm going to be doing to
That's not fair. They weakly auto attack.
So summons requiring the ATB bar to be maximally efficient makes them feel like a total waste to me.
Right. Granted, their big attack at the end is worth it.
It's a good one. Yeah. Sure. But
so even if you just summon them, let them stand there and auto attack the whole time and then do their big attack, that's fine.
But it feels weird, like summoning a 15-foot fire demon that just kind of skulks around the battlefield looking goofy for an entire minute while you throw potions at each other. Yeah, and then at the very end, he's like, fuck you.
They're
very cool looking. I
did learn earlier today that if you summon someone and then the character that you summoned with immediately eats shit and dies, the summon ignores all the rest of their gauge and just instantly uses their big attack and leaves.
Oh, what a nice workaround.
Right?
So I don't know. Summons needing ATB to be summoned and to be used to maximum efficiency makes them feel like an utter waste.
Yeah.
They're cool looking. I just think they could have been implemented either better or in a more succinct way, or honestly just more like the original, where it's just a thing that, hey, cool, it's like a big super move you get to use, kind of like limit breaks.
Right.
I feel like they're kind of wasted. Also, there were pre-order exclusive summons, which frustrates me.
Yeah.
Which is what a fucking stupid thing to lock. Limit breaks are kind of the same as the original game, really. They build up over time and you use them.
One thing that I'm not sure if I like it or not about the limit breaks is if your active controlled character uses a limit break, the combat stops while you use it. The enemy doesn't move. You can attack them, assuming they didn't move right before you used it. Then you're just fucked and you're attacking nothing.
Yeah, my biggest
happened to
complaint
me
with
more
limit breaks
times than I want.
is they can miss.
Yeah.
And you rely on that so much when it's almost full, and your whole strategy's around this limit break. And
yeah, and then the monster just moves.
Yeah.
But no, so assuming that the monster didn't move, all time freezes, you attack, you do your fancy cool attack and whatever. But if you use a limit break with one of your other characters that aren't being actively controlled, they just use it like a regular ability, so the monster can keep moving and just walk away from it.
I actually liked this.
Hmm?
I would go back and forth on how I'd use it. So if I wanted to kind of take a minute to think about the combat I'm in, I would stay on the character. Sometimes I would swap out of a character just to trigger their limit break and then pile on more damage while the limit break is going on. I don't know. I thought it was a cool way to go about it. I liked it. My only complaint was that it can miss. I don't think limit breaks should be able to miss at all, period.
Right.
I think you should just, because it already is a cutscene if you're on them. Just zoom to the fucking character, do the limit break. Like,
the summon does that, where when the summon does their big thing, it repositions the enemy to a place where the summon can hit it, and then freezes everything while it does its attack.
Yeah, it's
the thing they could do.
I'm frustrated that limit breaks could miss. That was stupid. And we're not doing final thoughts here, but just kind of overall, like the combat system, the good things were really good.
Yeah.
And when it was working well, it was really fun. But there's just some stuff that you're just like, why would they decide this? It feels like hasty decisions or something. And you know it isn't, because they made this game for half a decade.
Yeah. If it weren't called Final Fantasy, I would really enjoy the combat system in this. I would think that it was fun and neat. But because it is attached to Final Fantasy, especially because it's attached to a classic Final Fantasy, it's really frustrating to me, because I personally know people who played Final Fantasy because they don't have the physical skills to play action games.
Yeah. And
they're just locking this remake of this game behind that and telling those people, fuck you, we don't want your money anymore. And that's frustrating to me.
I think,
but outside of that, if you're just looking at the combat in a vacuum, I think it's fun enough. I think it's fine.
I think it dips into frustrating more often than I want, but I think a lot of the time it does feel fun and satisfying whenever you... It's kind of that sort of like Dark Souls or, oddly enough, Monster Hunter thing, where like when you do execute the combat well, you feel good. You're like, that was good, man. I did everything really good. I timed it all well. I felt smart and strong. But it's all, like you said, dependent on kind of player skill this time instead of just player planning.
And also ATB.
And ATB, and the fucking ATB. Yeah, well, honestly, I wish it just filled at the same rate all the time, no matter what, because then at least I could mentally plan for shit.
Exactly.
Like the amount of times I've gotten a character KO'd because I was like, fuck, I need to use their such and such. Someone's about to die. All right, I'll run over there and punch them real fast to fill my ATB.
Yeah,
they got killed.
Exactly.
It gets frustrating, but I think overall I liked
blocking
it.
Does fill your ATB pretty fast, though.
Yeah, and there's a materia that fills it faster too if you've got that on. But I think my hope, and I haven't played Rebirth yet, my hope is that they used this as a foundation for the combat system in Rebirth.
Rather than as a template.
Yeah, and tweaked it from here. Said, all right, what didn't work, what didn't feel good. I kind of suspect they just did the Square Enix thing and just squirted out the next game with the same engine and the same combat. But I hope I'm wrong.
I might move to that game after I finish this. I've not decided if I'm going to do that or Suikoden yet, so we'll see.
Let's quickly talk reception, because we got a whole after party to do.
And then a whole other episode.
And a whole other one of these. Everyone fucking loved it. It got like awesome Metacritic, awesome open critic, 10s out of 10s. EGM, like you said, gave it a 3 out of 5. People were stoked on it. It sold super well, 3.5 million units in 3 days, outselling prior PS4 exclusives, Spider-Man and God of War. By September 23, it had sold over 7 million units, and it was the third highest selling game in the US of 2020, behind Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and Animal Crossing. Tons of awards. I mean, it really got a lot of acclaim.
Oh yeah.
I want to say this, and this is not me being super shitty. I'm not trying to be shitty. I did overall enjoy this game. We're going to talk about more what we both enjoyed next episode.
Yes.
I think if this was not Final Fantasy VII, it would have been like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I fear that too.
It would have been like, yeah, that was a pretty cool action RPG. Some of the stuff is a little weird and, whatever, but it was pretty,
if it was exactly this gameplay, but
Yes.
had the skin and story of Forspoken, I don't think anybody would remember it.
Yeah, I think it'd be totally forgotten. Not to say I think it's bad. And let
No.
me be clear. I think a lot of 7 out of 10 action RPGs get shit on because they're just 7 out of 10 action RPGs. And I think the world needs 7 out of 10 action RPGs. I do feel like this one got a little bit elevated. And I think this was kind of our assessment when we did our original Final Fantasy VII episode, which was the game is real good.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's a little elevated beyond where it probably rightly deserves on the merits, but it's still a very fun game.
Yeah.
And gameplay wise, I had a fun time with it. If you want to know what we think about the story, you gotta wait. You gotta wait till next episode.
And again, a 7 or 8 out of 10, that's a good game. Don't let the internet confuse you into thinking that's a bad score.
And I'm not saying that's my final score, and I'm not saying I'm putting a number on it. I'm just saying that I think if this was basically the same story, but with all the Final Fantasy VII serial numbers scrubbed off and the same mechanics, I think it would have been like, 7 out of 10, it's okay.
Though, if this was a brand new game with a brand new story, everybody'd be like, a game about eco-terrorists taking on corporations.
Oh, God. The discourse around it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know how it avoided the discourse this time. We'll talk about it more. Next episode. Yeah. You know who doesn't have to wait?
Guy, because he's going to be here after
Well, no, he's going to be here. But
he's going to be here after we do our plugs, so please stick around after the plugs. Don't tune out just because we're doing plugs. Yeah.
Also, the people who are on our uncuts, they're going to get the next episode immediately because we release them in 2-episode batches. So you're going to know what we think about the story right after you finish this episode. This is Retro Warriors 505 remake, and then next episode is Retro Warriors Final Fantasy 7 part 2. And so you get to hear it now. And if you're on the Patreon, do our Patreon. I've been talking for a long time.
Yeah.
My brain no work. Do patreon.com/Retro Warriors, and it is good. There's good things there.
Money us, please.
Money us, please. Money me now. Money here now. Thank you. We want to thank following patrons for moneying us, starting with Bruh
and News Goose Clover,
Jacob Stacy,
Emil Rune. I think something broke there at the end there, unfortunately.
Eric G.
The Stone Shooter.
Lil Bunny Fufu 89.
A winner is me.
VJ.
And Fartbutt.
They all gave us money so that we would say those names, which I assume, of course, are their legal names.
They moneyed us right in the face.
Is that where you receive it?
That's where we all receive it, isn't it?
That's
why they call it the money shot.
We'll talk after the show about all of this nomenclature. Anyway, again, like Saturn said, please stay tuned after the ending theme here. We're going to have our producer Guy on for the after party. And then, we'll do the story next episode. So stay tuned. Anyway, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together. Hi, welcome to the after party with our producer, Guy.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Guy. Hello?
Oh, no. What's happened?
I feel like Justin forgot how to end the show for a split second there.
What I was going to say, I was going to be like, well, this is our Retro Warriors 505 remake, and then next episode will be Retro Warriors 506 Rebirth. And I was like, well, no, don't say that because it's not about Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth.
Yeah, cause that's a different game.
It's not gonna make that would be confusing to people.
I saw that's where you were going, but I saw you pivot. Yeah,
and I pivoted because I was like, well, I don't want to confuse people, so I'll just be awkward.
That's fine.
At least in your awkward confusion, you didn't like portmanteau it and call this the Afterbirth.
I'm not going to promise that I don't have an afterbirth joke next episode.
I've almost called this the Afterbirth many times, so it's fine.
It's tough.
Goodness.
It's tough. So hi guys.
Afterbirth is tough. Yeah.
Afterbirth is tough.
What do you got for us?
I like how we have zero experience with physically, going through Afterbirth, but
I was there for it one time.
Not me.
Yeah, no, I was there for it twice. It doesn't mean that I am qualified.
No,
to speak on it.
No, you're on. You're kind of in the audience. You're just like it's
right.
Yeah, you're just
cheering
viewing.
on, having some empathy.
You say cheering on, I imagine you just like, yeah! I'm like way too excited.
Push that placenta. You can do it.
What do you got for us, Guy? What's going on in Guy land?
I don't know. That's not the direction I thought I would take this conversation. That's for sure.
Here we are.
I don't know what's going on.
Did you play Remake? You liked it, right?
I did play Remake. I liked it.
No spoilers. Don't spoil anything, but you can talk about it.
It's on my YouTube channels if you want to watch 60 hours of me playing this game that I thoroughly enjoyed. I was going to call it a dumb game, but it's not. It's a good game.
Yeah. It's a solid game.
Did you have issues? Because I'm just curious because you have played a shitload of it. How did you feel about the combat? Did you feel any of our complaints, or was it just kind of like you didn't mind them, or was it a?
I didn't mind it. What you talking about it did remind me about being irritated about some of it, like the filling the ATP gauge.
Yes.
Yeah.
I largely went the same route that y'all did, where I had to make sure that I had somebody who could heal.
Right.
At all times.
I was bad about that my first playthrough. Real bad.
I didn't. Yeah, I remember we talked about it. You hated the combat. You thought it was awful, and it's a stupid hard game, and you don't understand why people make hard games. Which I think at the time I was on the side of it's not that hard. Quit being a baby. But have since cooled my rhetoric a bit and come to the understanding of some people just can't do physically can't do things right.
I did reach a point. One of the end bosses. I was trounced so thoroughly that I was like, I might actually just not be physically able to finish this game. And it was really deflating. And I eventually, what I had to do was go online and do a bunch of reading about strategies and materia loadouts and all this shit to try to figure out how to beat this one specific boss. And it did eventually work. But there was a moment for me where I was like, I might just not finish this game for the show, not because I don't have time, but because I can't beat this boss.
Right.
I don't think I learned to block like I dodged a lot the first time. I haven't played it a second time, but anyway, I didn't learn to block until one boss fight that you have to block. It makes you. It's part of the fight, right?
Yeah. There's
towards the end.
There's when you're playing on hard mode, there's a boss that you fight in the church area, and you cannot beat that boss without blocking extensively in hard mode. It's just literally impossible. He will counter everything you do, and you can't dodge him. It's rough.
Yeah. I think the one that I'm thinking of, you had to block and then counter, and you could not hit him without countering or some shit.
That's how that one goes. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like I said, I enjoyed it. It's one of the few games that I 100%ed since being close to 40. Or over 40 for that matter.
Don't you have to do it and then do it again on hard mode because you don't get hard mode when you to 100% it, or is it?
Yeah.
No, when I say 100%, I'm not talking about 100% like platinum trophy. I mean getting 100% on the status meter that says you did all the things.
Oh, okay, all right. There's normal people 100%.
Yes,
there's several things that don't appear on the gauge to tell you that you haven't completed them until you start it on hard, and then it'll be like, just kidding, that wasn't really 100%.
See, so never start it on hard, and your gauge will always say full, and you did it 100%.
Right.
Good job, Guy.
Perfect. Yeah. And I haven't played any of the DLC that came out or whatever.
Yeah.
So whatever. I'm probably gonna go to bed before we talk about that anyway. But.
Yeah, I haven't gotten. I didn't replay the DLC this time, and I don't remember it, so we're not going to discuss it.
Yeah, I actually didn't play it because I got to the end of the game, and I was like, I mainlined it. It was 2 days of over half the game that I was cramming in there, and I got to the end, and I was like, I've just kind of had my fill. I'm good, and I might do the DLC in a couple of weeks, but I'm just not going to right now. So
yeah, it's fair.
And I from what I understand, it's pretty disconnected too, so it's not like you really miss much.
It's a side story.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. And I know we're not talking story or spoilers, but I do remember at the beginning of it, the introduction of your little group of eco-terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And knowing their fates, pointed out, and it's in my video, in the first one, oh. This is going to get real sad real fast. That character's real cute.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
They did. So yeah, this is kind of getting into next episode territory, but they did really crank up the sad dial on a lot of shit where you're like, oh man, this is fucking dark. Like,
yeah. Shit the young me just blinked right past and didn't even notice was happening.
Now
in the
something
original.
about seeing it in 4K HDR,
Right?
you're like, oh, that is kind of fucked up, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes I wonder with things like that, is it that the better graphics and everything really do make it better, or is it just that I am older and
Right,
am
you just have
more
different
likely
context.
to So,
Oh, hey, there's something I can talk about. You asked me what's going on in my life. I can't think anything because all I've been doing with my free time, other than playing like Magic the Gathering, is watching Grey's Anatomy.
All right, yeah. I've heard of this show. I know the name of
I
it.
believe.
It is.
It's about,
it is a television
it's about a
show.
doctor, right?
It's about doctors. It takes place at a hospital.
And they fight crime.
No. So it's a soap opera, like 100%. Like if anybody,
Yeah, my
is
mom watches
listening to
those.
this.
Yeah.
It's the one about the lupus.
No,
The
that's
lupus?
House.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's how.
Oh.
And House is less soap opera because they have like a case of the week kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like Grey's is like this ongoing like story about which doctors are doing which other doctors. It's the most
like
drama llama show. It's like ER, but that drama cranked up.
Oh, dang.
I was explaining like one thing to my wife at one point because she doesn't watch it, right? But like, I don't remember how we got on the topic. Oh, I was watching it, like finishing an episode while she was getting ready for bed. Mm-hmm. And so she sat down and I was like, oh yeah, no, that doctor like murdered her fiance a little while ago, and now she's dealing with the consequences of that. And she's like, wait, what?
I would hope those would be pretty serious consequences.
Well, I mean, she didn't murder him exactly. Like he's a
soft murdering, Saturn.
Yeah. He was a heart patient that was in for a heart transplant, and they went to like harvest the heart, and like these two like dudes that were like on the table. They're like brothers or twins or something. Mm-hmm. And so there was one heart that was going to this guy who was a patient who like proposed to this doctor, and another heart that was going to some other rando dude. Mm-hmm. And it's like this whole plot line where the one that was going to the patient that you give a shit about, his donor died. So there's a whole episode around trying to like bump him up on the list. So she ended up like cutting the thing that was keeping him alive so that he get higher on the list to get the heart and steal it from somebody.
Oh.
That's pretty fun.
Stole a heart literally, not just figuratively.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so like it sounds so ridiculous when you describe it, but like watching it, it's like, oh my God. There's one character, like his dad died, and like I knew I wasn't gonna make it through that episode without crying. No, that's a good show. If you're into like stupid drama llama trash TV, it's great.
Me and Courtney are still working through Twin Peaks. Nice. We're like slow rolling it, and last episode we decided. She was like, I was trying to describe the show to my boss because he's never seen it. And she's like, I didn't even know what to say. And I was like, I know what to say. And she goes, what? And I go, it's like if an insane person made a soap opera.
Yeah.
It has that vibe of like, what the fuck? Like, it's like if a totally crazy person was like, I'm going to do a soap opera, which kind of is, I guess, David Lynch made a soap opera.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we were talking about soap operas the other day, so they were at the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, it does feel like an insane soap opera. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they really allude to it, especially in the first season where they literally have a soap opera on TV a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mom watched All My Children. That was her soap opera of choice. That was and God help you if you fucked up the VCR and it did not record All My Children between noon and 1 p.m. She would take her lunch break at work after All My Children, come home, rewind the tape, and then watch it. And if you fucked up the VCR, your day was ruined. You have now... she'd come home and be like, my day's ruined, so is yours.
Fortunately, my mother never learned how to use the VCR, so
mine
did. Not a concern.
Or if you fucked up a clock on it, or just anything. If you did anything with the VCR, she'd be like, don't touch the fucking VCR or the TV from noon to 1 o'clock. Oh, God.
I don't know if you've experienced this. I got to ask this now that I think about it. Have you ever, when you talk to somebody about somebody else, you have a picture of that somebody else in your head that doesn't match them in real life, like at all?
Oh, yeah.
Because like, when I think of like Justin's mom when he was little, and even now, like the picture that is in my head of this like over person like overarching somebody, like getting in your face and yelling and blah blah blah, like is a completely like structurally different person than your actually mom, whom I have met several
times. Like a lot of, I don't know. My mom wasn't like a strict parent, but she was a angry parent.
She was much more strict than my parents
I guess.
were.
Angry, I think.
Looming is the word I was looking for, not overarching.
Yeah,
but,
is the operative word. Like we weren't like getting the shit beat out of us or anything. It wasn't like anything horrible. But like she was one of those parents where it was like, all right, you're going to stand there and I'm going to scream at you for 30 minutes and you do not speak or you get another 30 minutes of screaming.
Yeah, I never got that.
My
mother did have a temper and she would, blow up at us every now and then. But she was just as happy with us to just leave the room so that she did not have to continue her rant. She's like, you get the fuck out of here.
My mom, it was like this thing. You could see it coming. It'd be like, all right, we're fucking doing this now. Clear tonight's schedule, and you'd see it coming. And be like, and the anxiety of seeing that coming and being like, oh my god, please don't, please don't. I don't want this to be my whole night. I was going to do tonight. I was going to do,
Right.
It was a thing. I mean, we all have our trauma, right?
Yeah.
And that's,
do we? I am hoping to mitigate that with my children.
You can mitigate it as much as you want, but we all have it. It's just part of life. I think that, granted, obviously some people have like real serious major trauma, but I think we all come out of childhood with a little bit of something that fucks us up. No one makes it out unscathed.
I was talking to my siblings about our childhood, and I had said something about how our parents were pretty laid back and forgiving and didn't flip out. And my brother and my sister both like almost simultaneously are like, "Did you have different parents than us?" Because that's not the experience we had. And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I realized that one, I was the youngest, so they had already, seen most of the worst that could happen from my older siblings. And two, I was generally well behaved. Like I always went to school. I never skipped school. I never had any drugs on me. I never got any trouble with the law or with the school or anything like that. So I was relatively...
Well, I guess Saturn's computer is going to crash in the middle of this thing. So we're just going to wrap up the after party with Guy, who's in the middle of a story.
Oh man, this is what we're doing.
We're gonna have to, man. I mean, we're almost at 2 hours. Like we can't keep going.
Play me off, Jimmy.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to play him off. I guess we'll just have to edit out you awkwardly sitting there by yourself, being like, "Where do I go?"
Hello.
My point I was making about my mom was that she has softened in her old age. There's a lot less in your face scream, which I think is just kind of what everybody does a little bit. Except my grandpa, he was just fucking mean all the way to the end. I mean, he was nice to me, but like he'd shout. But he was a shouter. Anyway, this got weird. This was a weird after party. But Guy, thanks for producing the show.
Just hold on, to make you feel a little better. My dad was a soft yeller, but it was still it's more of a lecture that got like a hard edge to it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And if you said a word, then it would be another 30 minutes tacked on for every word you said.
I know I fall into the lecture camp with my daughter, and I try to make it, if we are going to have these long, protracted emotional arguments, I want it to be like accepting and like we're just working through where this is all coming from. This is not me lecturing you. You're allowed to feel your feelings and you're allowed to speak your piece in a free and open environment. But I always fear that I'm getting into the parental lecture territory.
Yeah, I do that. Well, I can't say that I like had a sort of lecture about this is the thing that you were doing wrong kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I am an over explainer. So when we ever start talking about a topic, I will like talk for an hour nonstop somehow. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm talking too much.
Yeah. You get there. I think it's normal. I think the fact that you're aware that you're doing it, speaks volumes, because you can't be the person that never makes a mistake, but you can be the person that recognizes your mistakes and tries to do better, right? I mean, it's just life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I normalized apologizing to my kids a long time ago, and
oh yeah, and
that's a good decision.
I don't ever remember my mom apologizing to me, so
Right,
it's always a
yeah.
big deal when I'll come to my daughter after I got upset or something. I'll be like, look, I'm sorry I got upset, or I'm sorry I got loud, or I'm sorry if I made you feel bad, you know, and I'll apologize for something that I felt like I did wrong or was too over the top about, and I think it's made her a more compassionate person too. Her teachers are always like, she's the kindest kid in the whole class. I'm like, good.
Right, yeah. Same with my kids. It's good. So I think you're doing good too. You're being a good dad, man.
I think we're both good dads. I think
right on.
Great. Anyway, thank you for producing the show, and thanks for listening to the after party, everybody at home. Sorry that Saturn disappeared. In the pre-show,
we'll I promise we didn't kill him.
In the pre-show, he was like, "My computer crashed like 5 times a day. I'm sure it'll be fine." And then right here at the end, he's like, "Bah!" and is gone. I'm not sure.
Leave that noise too. Just
not sure I'm gonna edit that, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.